Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and esteemed participants, a very warm welcome to the kickoff of the 19th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. Can we get a small round of applause? This is going to be a transformative journey into the world of digital cooperation and development. I am Keron Rose, the digital strategist, and I am thrilled to be your host over the next 3 days for this remarkable event. And together, we are about to embark on a day packed with insights, discussions, and innovations. Now let's dive right in. Day one is stacked with dynamic sessions and engaging speakers who are at the forefront of shaping the digital landscape. Today's agenda and bios of all the speakers can be found on the CTU's website, www.ctu.int. We'll begin with an invigorating welcome by the esteemed Mr. Rodney Tiller. Can I get a warm round of applause for him? All right. He is the Secretary General of the CTU, setting the tone for the exciting discussions ahead. So to kick things off, how are you feeling so far?
Feeling great.
This is the 19th annual Governance Forum. Now, what is the big key takeaways that you expect for people to take away for this event?
Well, as you said, good morning, everyone. Welcome. So glad to have you here. Of course, this meeting is being held hybrid. We have several participants online. I'm not sure the number right now, but we had over 200 people registered to participate. Of course, we're more than happy to have people here in the room as well, live with us at the Secretariat. And my Deputy Secretary General, Nigel Casimir, is really the brain behind this event today. So I want to thank him for the hard work that he's put in. Thank the participants as well for all of the interest. The Internet Governance Forum, now in its 19th year, actually it's one of the oldest running Internet Governance fora in the world. And it's an opportunity for all stakeholders to discuss the issues around the Internet. Because we use the Internet every day. But many people don't really think about how it runs, who runs it, what are the key organizations involved, not just from a technical perspective, the domain name system and the URL, you mentioned ctu.int and so on. But how does all of this really come together? What are the key organizations behind it? Right. And one of the things we try to do in the Internet Governance Forum is to make the public aware of some of the key organizations. Really pleased to be joined this week, for example, by the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. And most people don't even know about it's called ICANN. Most people don't know about it, but it has a very critical role. It makes all of the Internet stuff work. Right? Without them, then we wouldn't have an Internet. But we also have the American Registry of Internet joining us this week, as well as the Latin American and the Caribbean Registry. And there are several other organizations involved, the Internet Society, and one of the key things we do is actually just to make people aware of these organizations and how policy is developed around the Internet. So it doesn't just happen. Technology standards evolved. Certainly the Internet has evolved since it first was developed as a research project. Now we have things like social media. Facebook wasn't a thing when the Internet was invented. So now we have things like misinformation, cybersecurity. We talk about digital inclusion. I mean, you yourself, you're a social media influencer, a digipreneur. So it has given rise to all of these wonderful things, and therefore the forum is an opportunity for all of these various stakeholders to come together and talk about how we would like the Internet of the future to evolve. Right.
Now, what's one of the biggest misconceptions about the Internet that you think we have across the Caribbean region?
Biggest misconception is that it is for everybody else and not for us. As in, what I spoke about in terms of the policy development aspect. So we're sort of, in a sense, users of the Internet, but we can also contribute to the development of the Internet. In terms of the applications, in terms of engagement, in terms of the policy development process as well. So I think it is for us to build that awareness of how we can be more active in terms of how the Internet of the future evolves.
Now, this forum, 19 years in, what is the significance? Why is this an event that you guys continue to put on every single year? What is the key role that the Internet Governance Forum plays across the Caribbean region and worldwide?
So it provides an opportunity for us to bring the regional stakeholders together, right? So we support national IGFs. There is within each country, we've had, for example, St. Vincent and the Grenadines just had a national IGF where they focus on the national issues of concern.
Yeah.
Trinidad and Tobago also has an IGF. Globally, excuse me, globally there is a United Nations Internet Governance Forum as well. And tomorrow we'll actually be joined by the UN Special Envoy on Technology, Amandeep Singh Gill, who is also advisor to the United Nations Secretary General on Internet Governance. So this thing goes all the way up to the top, right? So we're just playing our role at the regional level to bring stakeholders together so that there's some cohesion. We actually developed a policy framework as well that provides some guidance to our member states on things related to the Internet.
Wonderful. Now, before we let you go, there is a lot of topics that we're going to be addressing over the next 3 days. What are some of the key topics that you yourself are looking forward to hearing about?
Well, excuse me, there are several. The cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is one that is ever present because the issue of cybersecurity is important to ensure, of course, that all your information stays secure. As you do business on the internet, you want to make sure that you don't get hacked, your account doesn't get stolen. We'll also be looking at misinformation, I believe is one of the things that we're looking at. Artificial intelligence, which is a very, very hot topic. With ChatGPT, the advent of ChatGPT, I'm sure everybody here has used it at some point. It's a very big concern, and we have world leaders saying, slow down on the development, further development, because this thing is really becoming a big issue of concern. Yeah. We have also, one of the hot topics is over-the-top services, or OTTs, and we have our internet organization speaking about, and what we call over-the-top services are services like Netflix and WhatsApp that run on top of the telecommunications infrastructure. And that is an issue now that many of our operators in the region are saying this is an issue of concern for us. It is impacting our business. And therefore, it's good for us to have the opportunity to bring other stakeholders in to see if this is an issue of concern. Everybody watches Netflix, everybody's on YouTube. Yeah. And so we, at the heart of it, we want to ensure that the interests of the consumer is protected in this whole discussion. Yeah,
those are some key issues that are going to be addressed because, for one, we have seen the significance of cybersecurity. We've seen a lot of hackings, very prominent companies suffering from cybersecurity, ransomware. I don't think anybody really thinks about, on the consumer side, about Netflix, the issues of bandwidth, what goes into Netflix and YouTube running. They just watch all day, right? They know they pay their subscription, and that's really about it. And I'm really interested in the discussion about misinformation because we see it all the time. You have people that see something online, they share it 1 million times across WhatsApp, and it doesn't really matter what types of security measures we are putting in. We are seeing people just take it at face value and run with it. So even when you have things like WhatsApp will have that message that says, hey, this has been forwarded way too many times. Yeah. They put things in place so that you can kind of get an idea as to what is real from what's fake. But at the end of the day, the human still has to be the one to decipher that information. So those are some very key topics that you brought up.
Absolutely. So I hope everyone sticks around for the 3 days and gets involved. We welcome the questions in the interaction. We are not standing on protocol. Everyone's voice is equal.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Rodney Taylor, and give him a round of applause. Thank you. All right, so thank you, Mr. Rodney Taylor, Mr. Secretary General. Brace yourselves for an in-depth journey into the heart of Internet governance with the introduction to Internet Governance, Caribbean Perspectives from the Internet Organizations. Our panel of experts includes Mr. Nate Davis, Senior Government Affairs Analyst from ARIN, Mr. Albert Daniels, the Senior Stakeholder Engagement Manager for ICANN, Mr. Shernon Osepa, Director of Caribbean Affairs from ISOC, and Mr. Kevon Swift, the Head of Public Safety Affairs from LACNIC.
Hi. Great. Pleasant good morning to everyone here in the room. Good morning to all of you connected online. As Keron has mentioned, my name is Kevon Swift, and I'm thrilled to be here today at the 19th Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. You guys have to realize the significance of that. This is the oldest regional Internet Governance Forum in the world, which is a clear testimony to the foresight that the Caribbean had in looking at the internet and using the internet for its social, economic, and human development. But this terminology about internet governance, where did it really come from? So just to give a quick summary of that, the internet governance as a concept really arose during a two-phased process called the World Summit on the Information Society. In this two-phase process, this is where the international community got together to recognize the value of the internet and what it could mean for our development. So it came up in the middle of the process, and then it was consolidated, formalized at the end of the process, which was in 2005, in a declaration that is called the Tunis Agenda. So there's where we see internet governance. There's where it leads to the Internet Governance Forum at the global level. In 2006, there was the first global Internet Governance Forum. But remember, the Caribbean did it first. In 2005 was when we had the first regional internet governance process in the world. So I'm pleased to be here with my colleagues from what we call the I-STAR organizations, and I beg your forgiveness. I know that we're going to speak a lot of acronyms and jargon, and our role here is to demystify, clarify, and simplify these terms so that we have a better understanding of these things. I'm pleased to be here with my colleagues, Shernon, Albert, Nate, and myself, representing what we call the I-STAR organizations, which are organizations that are responsible for the internet's technical architecture. So there are other organizations. Here we are talking about ICANN, Internet Society, ARIN, and LACNIC as a subset of what we call I-STAR organizations. So before we really get into the governance, I think it's important for us to really understand what is the internet. A lot of times we hear in our interactions various concepts and definitions of what the internet is and what it isn't. So to help us understand what the internet is and the internet ecosystem, I believe my colleague Shernon, who is online. Shernon, morning.
Morning, Kevon.
Morning, Shernon. Conta bye.
Okay, bom. Boa tarde.
All right, we are the Caribbean Internet Governance after all. That's all I know in Papiamento. So Shernon, as I mentioned here in the room, we will be happy to hear your presentation on the introduction to the internet ecosystem. Over to you.
Yes. Let me share my screen. Yes. Okay. Can you see it, Kevon?
Yes, we see your screen.
Okay. So again, it's a pleasure and honor to be here. It is good for us at Internet Society to give a contribution to the development of the internet. It's a pity I cannot be there on the ground.
Okay.
We have
Shernon,
some.
could you just come closer to your mic? We have difficulties hearing you clearly in the room.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it's a pleasure and honor to be here. First of all, I would like to thank the Caribbean Telecommunication Union for inviting us. It's always a pleasure to give a contribution to the development of the internet. So what I would like to do is to focus a bit on the internet governance, what it is, and also to focus a bit on some definitions in order for us to set the stage with respect to this event. So in the beginning, there was confusion. Kevon did mention it a while ago. So back then, around year 2000, there was a lot of discussion going on globally. What is this new thing that we are seeing called the internet? So a lot of governments were concerned because they didn't know exactly what was this whole thing. And we should realize that we're talking around the year 2000. So Google was just established or formed in 1998. ICANN also in that same year, 1998, and a few years before, 1992, Internet Society. So around 2000, it was a big challenge. People really didn't know what was this all Internet about. So especially governments started to reach out to United Nations to ask them, okay, what is this whole thing called the Internet about? Given that they are acquainted with the telecommunications, which is one of the areas that United Nations through the International Telecommunication Union is focusing on, they reach out to the United Nations to seek assistance. And what we have seen is, as Kevon did mention, the United Nations did organize back then in the first phase in the year 2003 what we call the World Summit on the Information Society. So the idea back then was to let's discuss this internet and to see how we can give some direction to the globe regarding this new thing called the internet. The thing is that they didn't reach agreement at that particular WISIS event. So that was 2003. They didn't reach agreement. And then they had a second phase in 2005, whereby they did reach agreement regarding what we call some definitions regarding internet governance. So if we look at the definition of the internet governance, I think this is quite important because we will be talking during this week about internet governance. So it's important for us to define what we are talking about. Internet governance is defined as the complementary development and application by governments, the private sector, civil society, and the technical community in the respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and activities that shape the evolution and use of the internet. So we see some key stakeholders here. I did put them, for example, in yellow. We see the governments, we see the private sector, civil society, and the technical community. All of them came together and have been discussing how can we deal with this internet. So the internet is not something that only one particular stakeholder or country is shaping in which direction we should go, but all stakeholders, governments, private sector, civil society, and the technical community are focusing on what should be done with the internet. And based on that, we have seen also a new concept called the multi-stakeholder model that my friend Albert Daniel will be focusing a bit more later on. So again, it's not only one stakeholder giving direction, but all of them together in what we call the multi-stakeholder model. So the same is true also for what we call the internet ecosystem. We have different organizations here. We have ICANN, Internet Society, the organization that I'm representing. We have ARIN, we have LACNIC, we have ICANN, but none of us are like have like a kind of monopoly over the internet. All of us, in one way or the other, are responsible for one piece of the pie that you can see here. So if we start with the first one, naming and addressing, ICANN, for example, is responsible for the domain names. So they developed all the domain names that we are using nowadays, and Albert will be explaining that later on. The regional internet registries, represented here by Kevon and also by Nate, they are issuing all the internet addresses to their particular region. And they get these IP addresses from ICANN, but there is another organization called Internet Engineering Task Force, of which Internet Society, so our organization, is developing all the standards that should be used globally. So if we go clockwise, we see also another piece of the pie where you have governments, intergovernmental organizations, all of them are focusing, how can we focus on local, national, and regional policy development for our particular country, region, or globally. If we look, for example, at Caribbean Telecommunication Union, they are focusing on specifically on telecommunications and internet related policy for the Caribbean in this particular case. If you look at the yellow piece of the pie, we have education and capacity building. So you have several organizations also focusing on how can we ensure that people in our region get acquainted with what is this all internet about. So you have universities, all what we call the ISTARS, Internet Society, ICANN, ARIN, LACNIC, and others. They are focusing on capacity building and education as well. We would like to see our own people in the region taking the lead and not always looking to the US or Europe for assistance. What we're doing today is exactly in that capacity, education and capacity building. Not to forget the users, because without users, you don't have anything. So you have also the civil society group focusing on in which direction the internet should go, or at least what are the services that we need. And then you have also a very important group called the Shared Global Services and Operations. Here you have all the root servers. Globally, you have 13 organizations that are managing all the root servers around the globe. So they act like mirrors. They have all the information located on all these servers. And depends where you are in the world, then you can get access to the root server that is closest to your jurisdiction. And then the last group is what we call the open standards development. So here you have all the organizations that are focusing on technical standards development. We have the ITU-T, International Telecommunication Union. The T stands for telecommunications. And basically they are developing standards for the telecommunication infrastructure that we're using nowadays. You cannot have internet if you don't have a telecommunication infrastructure. Be it wired, satellite communication, it doesn't matter. You need to have a telecommunication infrastructure in place in order for you also to have internet connectivity. And you do have some specialized organization focusing on standards. One of those that is quite important for the internet is what we call the Internet Engineering Task Force, of which the Internet Society is the organizational home. So all the internet-related standards were developed by the Internet Engineering Task Force. We are talking about IPv4, IPv6, autonomous system numbers. All these internet-related standards were developed by the Internet Engineering Task Force. So how can you contribute to internet governance discussion? I think this is very important. It's great for us to come together to have some, how do you call it in Trinidad and Tobago, festivals, I guess, right, Kevon? But equally important is it's very important for us to discuss how we are going to contribute a wider internet development in our region and also globally. So it's very important to focus on the national and local IGFs because on the national and local level, this is where we can bring changes in policy or other developments that we are seeing in our countries. And then once you have had some impact locally, you can also focus on the region as a whole. How can we focus on the Caribbean as we are doing today? And also not to forget the globe because we are part of the globe. So you may give a contribution locally in your own country at the regional IGFs and also globally at the global IGF. And at Internet Society, our our own organization, we empower people to take action. So you can join a local chapter in the country. You can also become what we call an individual member of the Internet Society. If you are an organization, you can also become an organizational member. And if you would like to focus on some very specific areas, you can also join what we call the special interest groups. Within Internet Society, this year, we have been focusing on two big areas. The first one, the one that you're seeing in green, is what we call how can we ensure that the internet continues to grow. Globally, still 3 billion people are not connected to the internet. So we need to take measures to ensure that these persons also get connected to the internet. And we do have a few projects, as mentioned there, that are focusing on that particular objective. On the other hand, it's not only important for people to get connected to the internet, they need also to get connected to the internet in a secure way. It doesn't make sense if we have all kinds of cyber crimes ongoing where people cannot use the internet. So we also have a few projects. I'm just mentioning, for example, encryption is one of those, where we raise awareness what should be done in order for us to be much more secure when we are using the internet. So with that, that is basically what I wanted to share with you all. And I do wish you all a fruitful event. And let's continue to have that discussion. And always bear in mind, it's not only about the internet itself, but how can we use the internet to develop our own region for us to have a much better Caribbean. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Yes, let's give Shernon a round of applause. And for those of you who are new to the internet governance world, I swear, it gets easier. You just got a huge, big cook-up of all of these acronyms. But among those and the segments, so I think prior to this, if you were, again, new to the internet world, you may have thought that the internet was probably AOL and ICQ, I'm dating myself here, and probably now Facebook and Instagram. The internet is much more than that, as you would have seen and appreciated from Shernon's internet ecosystem slide. He mentioned there some segments, and we're going to continue with those segments there. In general, for Internet Governance Forum, we're talking about policy making, but he also mentioned the names and addressing part of the internet, for which we are represented here today. To get us into the names and addressing, I'd like to call on my colleague Albert Daniels, who works with ICANN, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, and he's Senior Stakeholder Manager for the Caribbean. Albert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kevon. Can you see my opening slide?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to congratulate the CTU on this 19th edition of the Caribbean Internet Forum. As Secretary General Rodney mentioned, this is really the pioneering event when it comes to internet governance, not just in the Caribbean, but in the world. And I must also indicate that I really did my best to be there in person. I had my hotel booked, I had my flight booked, but in the end, airline issues on Monday mitigated against me being there in person. So Kevon, I'll have to ask you and Nate and the CTU staff to think of me when you are enjoying your doubles and your veg rotis, because I will really be missing all of that sincerely. But you know, it's ironic that this happened, because one of the key themes in my presentation today will be the whole issue of participation. And what we have learned during the COVID times is that if it is not possible to participate in person, then we do always have the option of participating remotely. So thankfully, I can still be with you today. So the internet has powered digital transformation across the world for the past 3 decades. And you've already heard the term, the domain name system. And this DNS, as it is referred to, the domain name system, is an important tool in accessing the internet and makes accessing the internet more user-friendly than using internet numbers. I'm sure everyone must have encountered these IP addresses that we speak about, 192.168 and so on and so on. And if we had to remember those numbers every time we wanted to send an email or every time we wanted to use an application or a server, it would be very challenging for human beings. So as Shernon mentioned, we have these domain names which are easier to remember. For example, if we want to do online banking, we go to mybank.tt, or if we want to interact with our friends and family socially, we go to facebook.com or Instagram and so on. And all of those names we can actually remember. So one of the roles of the ICANN organization is to coordinate and manage the internet's unique system of identifiers. Every device connected to the internet has an IP address, an internet protocol address. And on this slide, you can see an example of one of those numbers in hexadecimal, the FD84 and so on. And we've already spoken of the others, 192.168. But we know that we use mainly domain names, facebook.com, google.com, mybank.tt, mybank.sl.lc, and so on. So ICANN coordinates all of that, but ICANN does this as an organization in collaboration with many other organizations, some of which Shernon mentioned, the Internet Engineering Task Force, the Regional Internet Registries, ARIN and LACNIC for the Caribbean, and so on. But there is an additional dimension to ICANN besides just the ICANN organization, which in my view is even more important than just the ICANN organization. And that dimension is actually the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. So when we speak of ICANN, sometimes we refer to just the ICANN organization, which is doing the coordination and management of those IP addresses and those domain names. But we are also speaking, when we talk about ICANN, of the ICANN multi-stakeholder community and also the multi-stakeholder board of directors within ICANN. So the multi-stakeholder community is actually a community comprising of different elements that we would look at in a while. And they're the ones who develop policies for the internet. It is not the staff at ICANN.org that develops policies. It is the ICANN community, all of you listening to this broadcast today, and those of you who are there in person. You develop internet policies, you propose them to the ICANN board of directors for review and final decision. The ICANN board of directors actually makes that decision and then says to the ICANN organization, okay, the community has decided on this policy. We need you to go ahead and implement this policy. So one of the key aspects of our multi-stakeholder approach to policy development is the fact that this takes place in a bottoms-up approach. In the model, you have a community including individuals, non-commercial entities, commercial entities, industry, representatives of government, representatives of the technical community, and they all work in a collaborative way to develop policy for the internet. A very important aspect of this is that that collaboration takes place in a bottoms-up approach. Any one of those individual stakeholders could propose a policy or identify an issue with regard to the internet that needs attention. And then there's a whole series of steps that takes place that allows the policy to filter up until it is implemented by the ICANN.org. So this slide that you are seeing right now gives a sort of overview of how this policy development process takes place. First of all, the issue is identified by any member of the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. The policy is then developed. The final draft policy is submitted to the board for review, and then the ICANN board takes a decision on the policy and then asks the ICANN organization to implement the policy. But if you look on the outskirts of this diagram, you see certain groups that interface at different stages of the policy development process. Policy can be developed either with regard to the numbers, both at a global level and at the level of the regional internet registries, which we will be hearing a little bit more about from Nate and Kevon, or policy can be developed for country code names, names like .tt, .lc for St. Lucia, .jm for Jamaica, .bb for Barbados. And policy can also be developed at the generic level, .com, .org, .edu, etc. And there are several organizations within ICANN, several groupings within ICANN that would proceed in the policy development depending on which one of these areas the policy is developing in. But as that policy development is taking place, you have some other groups of the community, some other sections of the community, which you see illustrated at the bottom of this slide, which give advice to the ICANN Board of Directors, indicating how the policies may impact national laws, how it may impact security, how it would impact end users, and so on. So these groups that you have within ICANN are three groups looking at numbers and names on the one hand. We call those supporting organizations. But on the other hand, groups giving advice, advice coming from the perspective of governments, from the perspective of users, and so on. If we look a bit deeper at these groups, we see some of these acronyms that Kevon referred to. The ASO, Address Supporting Organization, dealing with global policy on numbers. And then at the regional level, the RIRs are the ones that develop that regional policy. The Country Code Name Supporting Organization, looking at policies on country code names. And of course, the Generic Name Supporting Organization, looking at policies on generic domain names. And then you also have within the Generic Name Supporting Organization several subgroupings which represent the interests of the intellectual property constituency, the business community, the interests of the contracted parties, registries and registrars, and non-contracted parties, and also the non-commercial stakeholders. All of these groupings are groupings where you, as members of the multi-stakeholder community, can fit in and make inputs to the policies that affect the type of internet that we have. And this can also happen through your input as a representative of a government, as a representative of end users, and as representatives of the root server and the security community. Now, what are some of these policies that you can actually impact on? We are all quite familiar with domain names ending in .com, .org, .edu, and so on. But at some point in the life of the internet, the multi-stakeholder community decided, well, look, you know, we want more competition, we want more innovation, we want more choice. So the community, and I stress on community, the community and not the ICANN staff or management decided that there should be additional domain names like what you see on this slide. Additional domain names in several different areas to increase that competition, choice, and innovation. So the policy development process took place within the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. It was facilitated by the ICANN organization. The policy was put to the ICANN board of directors, and in the end, we now have over 1,200 additional top-level domain names like .sport, .media, .education, .charity, .bank, .exercise, and so on. And this has happened and given us a slightly different internet to what we started out with, all because of the participation and the input of stakeholders from across the community. So this is the kind of change that can actually be effected by the participation of stakeholders in the community. Another big change that took place in the internet was the introduction of internationalized domain names, and we've already spoken about generic domain names. And what this means is that users in Saudi Arabia, in India, in China, in Russia can all use the internet in their own language script, in their own characters. And this means that it introduces a tremendous opportunity in business by new individuals using the internet in their own language, and also by new users coming on the internet because of the availability of these new scripts. So I just wanted to throw all of this out and indicate to you that the internet is not a static technology. The internet can change and be innovated based on the inputs of stakeholders from varying backgrounds. And the ICANN organization is there to help facilitate this innovation on the internet and to help coordinate the inputs of our end users, government, technical community in shaping the kind of internet that we use every day for business and social interaction. So I'd like to thank the CTU for this time, and I look forward to engaging with the panelists and participants in discussing this whole issue of how the multi-stakeholder model can be used to develop policy in the internet governance community and in the internet community. Thank you very much. Kevon, I will now hand back over to you.
Okay, quick round of applause to Albert. Thank you very much, Albert. Just as a housekeeping note, if you have your questions and comments, please make sure to write them down and we'll try to address them at the end of the presentations. We heard from Albert, and Albert presented more acronyms. We heard about the SOs and the ACs and these new GTLDs. So whereas all of the presentations are available, I'm sure you can reach out to Albert and we could probably have a coalition organized to figure out how we can register the doubles and actually develop business models for that. This is the guy here. He is the guy who's responsible. We have a huge gold mine sitting there with doubles. Nate, we'll have some doubles afterwards. Trust me, you're missing out one of the best things from Trinidad. So moving along right now, Albert also mentioned the RIRs, the Regional Internet Registries, for which we have two represented here, the American Registry for Internet Numbers and the Latin American and Caribbean Internet Addresses Registry, ARIN and LACNIC. So I'll give a generic or a general presentation, I should say, about the RIR system, and then from there Nate will take it over and then he will speak a bit more as to some Caribbean priorities that we can be looking at. So presentation, if you can. Oh, so I think my presentation seems to have disappeared somewhere, somewhat. Ah, here we go. All right, so the RIRs, the Regional Internet Registries, we represent 2 of 5 unique organizations in the world. We are all distinguished by our geographic coverage area. In the case of ARIN, that deals with North America and parts of the Caribbean, and in the case of LACNIC, that deals with Latin America and parts of the Caribbean. But in terms of how we are structured, we are similar organizations. We have the same functions and we provide these functions to our customers. Just for you to have a quick understanding as to who our customers are, the majority of them are the internet service providers. So we are higher up that internet ecosystem when it comes to internet services. So an RIR is responsible for the management, allocation, and administration of internet numbering resources. We've been hearing about IPs whole morning. There are 2 versions, IPv4 and IPv6. There's another resource called an ASN, an autonomous system number. In a minute, I'm going to tell you what IPs are. And ASN is basically a number that is assigned to a network so that network can be visible on the global internet. I'm simplifying things here, but of course I'd be happy to expand this at another occasion. So in terms of our main functions, the management, distribution, and the registration of these internet numbers, there we have the 2 versions. We maintain routing logs and log services for these numbers. So Albert mentioned the domain name system. Think of the domain name system as a matching system between names and numbers. And for each part of the system, we have to maintain registries or logs of who holds which number or who holds which domain name. Interestingly enough, in the numbers world and in the names world, we call this the whois system. And then we have the support for internet technical infrastructure. So Albert also gave the example of an email being sent. For an email to be sent, it relies on services that we provide as RIRs called reverse DNS services. So we are very critical in how the internet functions. So an IP address, every computer, every device needs a number, but the human brain recognizes and remembers names. So that's just what it is. Every device, every server, every mobile needs a number. And to probably help you along, I'll give you an example. Anyone here can guess what 8.8.8.8 as an IPv4 address, where that will get you to? 8.8.8.8. Not folks who are well seasoned in internet governance. Any other? No one? All right, I'm not seeing it online either. That is google.com. At least it's IPv4 address. So at least that one isn't too complicated. But when you have 192.168. One is going to remember all of these. So that's where the names part comes into play. It matches with a number that is distributed by one of us as the RIRs. And what you'll see here, that hexadecimal longer number, that's what is representative of an IPv6 address. So computer recognizes numbers, and humans, of course, they remember names. So the RIRs, as I said, there are 5 unique organizations in the world. We started with RIPE NCC. RIPE NCC is the RIR for the European region and also the Middle East, and they were established in 1992 with their head office in Amsterdam. And then soon afterwards we had the Asia Pacific Registry, the Asia Pacific Network Information Center, which registered its offices in Melbourne in Australia in 1993. Moving along, we have ARIN being established in Reston, Virginia in 1997. As we move over into the 2000s, LACNIC came about as an agreement of large operators within Latin America wanting to have its registry in 2002. And last but not least, the last registry on the block is AFRINIC, which came about in 2005. I would love to get more into detail with these things, but I'm around for the entire week, so feel free to approach me or Nate and ask any questions you may have. One of the interesting things to note about the RIRs, these are our characteristics. We are independent organizations. We're not treaty-based, but we do not report to any other organization. We have been delegated this authority to create and to bring together regional community to develop regional policies that will distribute internet numbers. So we are independent. We are also not for profit. Just now when Albert was talking about domain names, he spoke about monetization possibilities. I made a joke about duck doubles. When it comes to the internet numbers, it's a not-for-profit setup that we have. You pay a fixed price to have use of a number. This is done under a contract, and you have to renew your fees annually to continue using this number. And on that note, we are membership-based. So I alluded to what our key customer profile is. Those are the ISPs, but you also have universities, we have banks that come directly to us for internet numbers. We also have operators of critical infrastructure, such as internet exchange points, that can come to us directly to get internet numbers. And of course, we are community driven. And you would have seen in Albert's examples a lot of talk about community. So I'm probably skipping ahead here. So at LACNIC, we have 12,000 members in 33 territories across Latin America and the Caribbean. For the Caribbean component, we have just about 267 members. And that is across 14 territories. But just to note, in ARIN, it's similarly about 300 members in the Caribbean that is served as well. So we can say that we serve the Caribbean equally. At a global level, the 5 of us combined, we are called the NRO, the Number Resource Organization, where we monitor the developments of numbers on a global level, and we try to come up with ways to coordinate our activities for anything that may be an opportunity or a threat to the global internet community. This is again a breakdown of different activities that we do at the NRO, another acronym. And I can get back to this at another point. So just to understand a breakdown of this numbers world, at the global level, we have had distributions from what used to be called a body at ICANN called the IANA, and that distributed these large blocks of numbers, and then we, as I said, are authorized or mandated to create regional policies to distribute this. Below us, there's a layer called National Internet Registries, who have taken it upon themselves to distribute to entities within a jurisdiction. Two examples of these would be in Mexico and in Brazil, where you have respectively NIC Mexico and NIC BR that are responsible for the distribution of not only numbers but names within those two jurisdictions. And of course, there's something called a LIR, which is a local internet registry equivalent, well, I would say equivalent just to simplify terms here, to an ISP, what happens within a particular jurisdiction. And this is the last slide I'll leave you with. How are we governed? So as I said, we are independent, but we have three spheres of governance that guide our actions. We have the national legal framework of our head offices, so in this case, Virginia law and the US law. In the case of LACNIC, that's in Uruguay, Australia, the Netherlands, etc. We have a technical remit. These are the agreements that we have with ICANN for the technical services and the technical coordination of the domain name system that we provide. And again, community policy. Albert spent a lot of time speaking about community, and similarly, community for us means anyone that has an interest in developing these policies in our regions, they can participate. And when I say anyone, I mean anyone. Our policy development processes are not limited to ISPs. It could be anyone at all from any part of the world who has an interest in internet numbers. They can come and be part of our process, propose ideas, make proposals, defend those proposals, and then those proposals become policies that we as staff, we will implement. So the policies are made, they're ratified by a board, and then the staff implement these policies. So Kevon or Nate, we do not write any policies directly. The policies come from you, all of you in the room, and then it goes through a process, and then they can become policies that we will implement. So I will stop there, and I'll hand the baton over to Nate, who will talk a bit more about Caribbean priorities for sustainable development.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 19th Caribbean IGF. It's really an honor to be a part of this. I want to say hello to everybody that's here in person, as well as those that are joining us virtually. It's interesting. Secretary General Rodney Taylor said something very profound earlier, which is the internet is not something over there for others to manage. It's something for all of us to manage. Very subtle, but profoundly important. And obviously, with the existence of the Internet Governance Forum here in the Caribbean in its 19th year, those words today cannot be any stronger said. So if there's anything that you leave with this week, I think it's important to know that you're part of the internet ecosystem, the internet governance system, and I hope my slides today will kind of pull together some of the slides and presentations that my colleagues have made earlier. A little bit about myself, Nate Davis. I'm a Senior Government Affairs Analyst with ARIN. I've actually am back with ARIN after a failed retirement attempt of 3.5 years. Prior to that, I served as ARIN's Chief Operating Officer for 14 years. And then a few years prior to that, I actually led the engineering department at ARIN back in the late 90s. So I've been doing this for a little while. But I'll be the first to admit that as technology And as internet governance and other areas grow, I still find myself learning something every week. It's something that continually evolves, and it's something that you have to stay actively engaged with. So that being said, what I'm going to talk about briefly are Caribbean priorities for sustainable development. And this slide deck comes from a conversation Kevin and I had because we have Bevel missing, who's really a great presenter and a tough act to follow, I might add. Anyways, as Kevin and I were talking about shuffling things today, I would have typically done an ARIN update or a technical presentation, but I stepped back and I thought to myself, what is the right thing for this meeting that could be better said as me doing the last presentation for today? And I really felt this topic hopefully will pull everything together, as I said earlier. So let's start first. There we go. So I'm going to talk about why sustainable development, why that's important to the Caribbean. I'm also going to take just a few brief thoughts on where, from an RIR, names and numbers perspective of that internet ecosystem, where the Caribbean should focus. And then lastly, we're just not going to toss it out there and say, this is what you should do. How can we help? And I think that's important, that we are partnering with the IGF, with organizations throughout the Caribbean to help foster development for a digital transformation. So let's start first. The Caribbean needs to continue to strengthen its critical infrastructure to address natural disasters up with the world's growing economy. There's so much that's happening here in leaps and bounds, whether it's earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, any type of events that throw a system into trauma. Your ability, the Caribbean's ability through their technical infrastructure to be able to address that, resolve it and move forward is vitally important, as well as keeping up with what's happening with the global economy. And when I say that, in 2021, the World Bank mentioned that mobile services and technology account for $4.5 trillion of economic value. And that's just the mobile side of things. Where that is today in 2023, as well as in a more broader perspective, those dollars are even greater. So there's value there in keeping up and help knowing that the Caribbean is available to the world for its services, its travel, its tourism, and so forth. Where should the Caribbean focus? Information and communications technology, ICT, education and training. This week is a great example, getting the youth involved from the beginning, because any of this digital transformation, regardless of where it is throughout the world, it's really it's an evolution. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not a milestone. It's going to happen over time. So seeding that education with the youth, as well as among us and others who have a vital interest in the growth of and development of the internet, is really very important. Secondly, resilient infrastructure deployment. And there's really a couple things there that make that essential, and that is that to make that happen, you've got to deploy IPv6, which Kevin mentioned earlier, as well as IXPs. And IXPs have been making great progress here in the Caribbean, and that inertia needs to continue in the years going forward. And then lastly, many of my colleagues have talked about strategic policy development, and that needs to involve everybody here and remotely and others who have not yet engaged and understand the importance of it. These policy discussions take place here in venues such as this, the Caribbean IGF. They take place in the regional RIRs. They take place at ICANN. They take place at the ITU level, and it appears that significantly it's taking place now at the UN. So it is all levels, and it involves everybody. I think it's key to note that people of all backgrounds, locations, and so forth can participate. And what I mean by that is that many of our facilities, our capabilities to provide involvement in policy, for example, with ARIN, and it's the same with LACNIC, you don't have to be a member of those organizations. You can actually subscribe and be part of those policy discussions, engage in that conversation, and contribute, and not necessarily be a member. If you're a stakeholder and you're interested in the policies that are being discussed, you can actually jump right in and help contribute. And we encourage folks from the Caribbean to be part of that discussion. ARIN is fortunate to have not only members of the AC, but also members of the board who have come from the Caribbean. And we really like to have that Caribbean input into everything that we do. And I know LACNIC feels the same way in their processes. So what do we provide? We provide webinars and on-site training. We have a number of hosted webinars that you can grab online. Some of them are live. You can sign up for them. And then we will, from time to time, as schedules allow, because we all have a few staff and very aggressive schedules, we'll actually provide on-site training. And we try to do that at such events such as this, whether it's Caribnog, ICT week throughout the Caribbean, but we try to engage and provide the training to the extent that we can where possible. We also provide tools to enhance routing security. So one of the things mentioned earlier by the Secretary General was cybersecurity. The RIRs provide tools, as well as ICANN, to enhance routing security, and those are through another few set of acronyms, RPKI, which is Resource Public Key Infrastructure, RPKI, also through IRRs, which are Internet Routing Registries, and those are authenticated. They're tied to the database that helps support the registration of these number of resources. And then also DNSSEC. And this all comes together through a facility that ISOC, Shernon's team, has put together called Manners, which is the mutually agreed upon norms for routing security, all right? So it kind of pulls all together a mechanism to secure routing. And why is that important? It's just not me as somebody who's an ISP to announce routes and that you know that those are secure routes, but it's also important for me to know your routes are secure as well. So it's a trusted system in which everybody needs to contribute and be part of the bigger global solution, if you will. And then lastly, what I'll mention is engagement mechanisms. So we support a policy development process, all of us do. Albert spoke to it quite well with regards to what happens at ICANN and the name side. LACNIC and ARIN also support policy mechanisms and encourage your involvement at the RIR level. And we provide such things as fellowships and research projects for you to become part of that broader community. And those are available to anybody that's interested. We also foster support at the international level when we talk about the ITU. So I know for Kevon, for Albert, Shernon, myself, that we're often resources to countries that are represented at the ITU level, and now also more frequently at the United Nations level as resources to those countries that are making statements or are possibly considering what policy positions they want to take. And we're part of that facility as well. So we would like to encourage you, again, to be part of the process, to engage, to help set policy, to become a stakeholder. And the stakeholder, as Albert really clearly said well, which is this is about multi-stakeholderism. It's about folks at any level within any organization sounding their voice to help shape what long-term global policy looks like. And that's all I have for today. But I'll be around. I'll be around all week to answer any questions. And again, I appreciate being a part of this.
Great.
Yeah, so we're going to take 2 minutes for questions that came in online. If you do have any questions in the virtual space, please put them in the Q&A section. And Faith is going to be reading out some of the questions that we have been getting in.
Hello? Hello? First question we received was, what are the instruments to regulate internet governance?
Just repeat.
What are the instruments to regulate internet governance? We got that earlier on during the first few presentations.
So I'll take that quickly. So, well, we won't say regulation is probably the last thing we want, but there are various instruments that do create and to uphold the system. We mentioned it with the ICANN and the RIR examples, the policy development processes. Those policies that result from that are instruments for the governance of that. And again, being part of discussions, the outcomes of those discussions are also what contribute to the internet governance ecosystem. There are regulations that come from bodies such as the International Telecommunications Union, which are binding onto states, and they are geared towards what would be the infrastructure, physical infrastructure issues. So there's several items in there, and what we presented in large part today would have been a lot of the policies that make the internet work.
And Kevon, all I would add to that is to simply say that sometimes organizations like ICANN get confused and are identified as regulatory bodies. And I just wanted to say that ICANN in particular is not a regulatory body. As a matter of fact, our focus is on ensuring simply that the names and the numbers and the system of translation works well with all the RIRs and the ASNs and so on. And we hardly ever get involved in any aspects related to how those names and numbers are used in terms of content. So very, very laser focused attention and ambit. So ICANN really facilitates the community being the watchdog.
So can I just want to challenge you though, Albert. Clearly there is, with such an open resource, there's a huge potential for abuse. And therefore, what role does ICANN or any of the internet orgs have in terms of ensuring that you know, I don't want to say regulate, but how do you address issues of abuse, for example, on the domain name system?
Thank you very much, Rodney. That topic that you just mentioned, DNS abuse, is actually one of the current hot topics at all ICANN meetings. Because as you quite rightly said, this system of translating names into numbers has some opportunity for hackers to get in and impersonate your bank, impersonate various organizations. So this is taking place and it affects the DNS system, you know, as ICANN manages it. So there's a lot of discussion going on within the ICANN multi-stakeholder community. But again, the ICANN organization is facilitating a community discussion on how this topic, how this issue can be addressed, how it can be tackled, how it can be mitigated. And interestingly enough, a lot of work has been spent on just defining the issue. What do we refer to as DNS abuse? How is it different to DNS misuse? So from an ICANN org perspective, we are currently facilitating those kinds of discussions in the ICANN multi-stakeholder community.
Great. Last question.
Faith, last question.
Okay. Hello? The next question is, I've always wondered why many businesses within the Caribbean don't use their country's code domain names. Like, for example, you would see them use mybusinessnameTT.com instead of mybusinessname.tt. Is it that the domain names are costly for these TLDs per country?
I think Albert may be best to speak to the domain names and its CCTLDs in
Yes.
the region.
That is a question that I would absolutely make a comment on, but I didn't want to hog the mic. This is what we refer to when we speak about, expanding the domain name system as the community decided to do with those additional 1,200 domain names. And there was also a question related to non-English users and persons who don't use English scripts, which I answered in the Q&A. But the whole idea is that this is an end user choice. This is a business choice, what domain name they decide to use. As you have seen, many new ones are available. And of course, we have our local country code top level domain names. And it is at events like this where we spread the information. .tt is available in Trinidad. .bb is available in Barbados. .kn is available in St. Kitts. When individuals realize that by saying that I am a .tt website, then I show myself as being more authentic as someone who creates doubles. Because if I compare doubles.tt to doubles.lc, you might say, well, okay, these solutions don't know anything about doubles. The real good doubles cook will be the one from Trinidad and Tobago. So this is how we can add an element of localization, of regionalization to the domain name that we decide to use. A website that is on .education perhaps might be more focused on education than one that is on .sport, for example. And you, the end users, are actually becoming more and more aware of these issues by participating in events like the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and then being put in a position where you can make choices as to what works best for you.
So I just want to add one last comment to that. I think the question we should ask ourselves here, what are the opportunity costs for not using our CCTLDs and new GTLDs that reflect our Caribbean identity? Because we are operating in a global system. So it's something for us to continue processing. I know this forum is one that we'll definitely have many more opportunities to continue aerating that topic.
And let me just add as well that, I would love to hear your views because I know you're in this space.
Exactly.
But we are very short on time, but maybe at some point, I know you advise businesses on these issues, on digital issues. So it would be good to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it in one sentence. The main reason why people use a mybusinesst.com versus mybusiness.tt is just lack of education. That's one of the biggest questions I get asked. How do I go about registering a .tt domain name? Most people don't know. That's really it. So I want to thank the esteemed panelists, Mr. Kevon Swift, Mr. Nate Davis, Shernon Osepa, and also Mr. Albert Daniels. Can we get a round of applause for them? This first session was all about laying the groundwork as to how the internet works, because I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the internet is who is involved, who runs it, and how it works. Just to get a quick pulse check, right? We still have a lot of people in the Caribbean that think the internet is Facebook. The internet is Instagram. The internet, as far as some people are concerned, is Netflix, and that's really all they do when it comes to the internet. But just to get a pulse check in the room and online, let me know, where did your internet journey start? So let me know online, message, where did your internet journey start? I remember AOL. Can we get an AOL in the room? AOL? Too young, too old? Where are we? What was the first? Let me know. What was the first interaction with the internet that you had? MSN? We heard Kevon talk about ICQ. Any ICQs? Wow.net? I still remember my ICQ number, 577-60593. That's how much I used it back then. Wow. I'm dating myself, I feel. Anybody remember some of the search engines? Alta Vista.
Yes.
Ask Jeeves.
Netscape.
Netscape, my goodness.
Yeah.
A Barbadian was one of the first people to develop the search engine?
Yes.
Wow.
Caribbean excellence.
Wow. Caribbean excellence at its finest. Again, round of applause for the esteemed panelists, please. All right, so we are moving right into the realm of capacity building. This is session number 1, ICT indicators to measure connectivity and support policy development, led by the insightful Mr. Martin Schaaper, Senior ICT Analyst from the ITU.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon from Geneva, where I'm based. I'm going to try to share my screen. I have a little echo, but maybe that's unavoidable. Share screen. Here we are. Share. And in presentation mode. I was in the early 90s, we're doing some internship for some ministry in the Netherlands, and they asked me if I could look into this new thing called the internet, if it was any useful for them, maybe. Should they go on it or not? That was kind of my first experience with the internet. Here we go. I hope you can see my full screen here. I hear no complaints, so that should be okay. Again, good afternoon from Geneva. Good morning to all of you. My name is Martin-Swaby. I work for the ITU. It has been mentioned already a few times this morning. The ITU actually is the oldest agency in the UN family, existing for more than 150 years, connecting the world since the dawn of the telegraph. There's 3 bureaus in the ITU: radio communication, telecommunication standardization, and the Development Bureau. And I'm in the Development Bureau, where I'm part of the IST data and analytics division. So today I will talk about indicators for policy development. So I will frame it in terms of policy, because indicators should serve a purpose. You should not be collecting indicators because the ITU tells you to. Then I will dive a little bit into the work that we are particularly doing at the ITU on IST statistics. And then I wanted to show a little bit of what we have, the data that we have, different aspects of the digital divide. But we are a bit low on time, so I may skip through that part or go very quickly through it before concluding. But indicators should serve a purpose, and they should be framed in the policy framework. And that's the first part of my presentation. And the policy paradigm that has been making more or less headwaves the last few years is what we call universal and meaningful connectivity, embracing the policy imperative, addressing the measurement challenge, to highlight that it's an interaction between policy and indicators, what indicators can do for policy and what policy people are asking us to measure. So when we talk about meaningful, universal and meaningful connectivity, what we mean with it is the possibility for everyone, the universality part, to enjoy a safe, satisfying, enriching, productive, and affordable online experience. So it does not mean that you have to engage in e-learning, or that going on Facebook is bad and playing games is bad and you should do something meaningful. What we mean with it is that whatever someone wants to do online, they should be able to do it in a way that's affordable and reliable and safe. So here there's a little diagram where we can see in the green-blue part, the universality part. So we want everyone to go online in terms of people, households, communities, businesses. And on the bottom part, in the middle of the diagram, you can see what we call the enablers: infrastructure, affordability, device, skills, and security and safety. And enablers actually also become barriers if they're not being fulfilled. So if it's not affordable, if it's very expensive where you are, affordability becomes a barrier and not an enabler. And where we want to go, of course, is we want to go to the right-hand part of this chart. There's a few bits that we've left out of scope. And especially on the right, I want to say what are the applications and the impact of connectivity. Not that it's not important, but again, we don't want to prescribe what people should be doing. And the impacts are very important, but they're very hard to measure. So we need different ways of measuring that. A couple of years ago, in the framework of the Digital Cooperation Roadmap of the United Nations Secretary General, we developed a set of targets, aspirational targets for 2030. We did it together with the Office of the Secretary General's Envoy in Technology, and we published them. They are targets on universality, targets on technology, and targets on affordability. I don't want to go in all of the targets specifically now. I only want to say that the targets are aspirational, so the bar is put very high. And we know that many countries will not reach them, but we at least want countries to aim for there. Also, this is linked to the Sustainable Development Goals, and we think that digital and connectivity is crucial in achieving the SDGs. That's also why we put the time limit at 2030. But of course, targets are just targets by themselves, and we want to put them into practice. And we've been fortunate to get funding from the European Union for a 3-year project to promote and measure universal and meaningful connectivity. So this project started officially on the 1st of May of this year. So we're just at the beginning of it. And basically, we have 3 main work streams. One work stream is on advocacy. So that is showing the targets, showing it to policymakers, getting it on the policy agenda, developing briefs, crashing as many meetings as we can to talk about this, all with the expected output of increased awareness of UMC. And hopefully also that policymakers will take it into account when doing their policy plans. A second work stream is around measurement and capacity building for measurement, and that's really the bread and butter of my division. So we do measure already all of the targets and more, but we need to collect more information, more data. Not all countries collect all data, so that's also where capacity building comes into play. We're planning on a host of capacity building activities, about 7 in all regions of the world, in the next year, where we talk about the indicators and the methodology, and that should lead to an improved data dissemination and enhanced statistical capacity to measure UMC. And there's a research component. In particular, we will do a big publication every year, the Global Connectivity Report, and that will include policy recommendations and should lead to better policies for achieving UMC. We have a dashboard already. It's more or less in beta version at the moment. In the dashboard, you can see, for example, you can see for each target how all the countries are doing. Or if you prefer, you can go to a country, you select your country, and you see where your country is doing, how they are doing on each of the targets. Are they far away from it? Have they met the target? Are there maybe no data for it? So this is already online at our website. You will get the link later on. Since we're at the Regional Internet Governance Forum, I would also like to highlight the fact that we have an event at the Internet Governance Forum in Kyoto. So I'm hoping that if you're attending that meeting there, please do attend our workshop as well. We have a workshop on Wednesday, the 11th of October at 9:45 local time. It's also online, so you can also connect remotely, but please do have a look and do visit our event. So this is in a nutshell, basically the need for measurement. The indicators need to serve policy purposes, and we framed it in the framework of universal and meaningful connectivity. So what do we do, ITU, the statistics division? Just like the ITU, we are very old. We have been collecting statistics since a long time ago, starting with telegraph statistics, telephone statistics, telex statistics, and we've of course gone with the time. So we now are more modern, and we get to some of the products later on. We consider ourselves to be the leader in global IST statistics, and we work on all aspects of the data. We collect the data, we develop the indicators, or we don't develop the indicators. We develop the indicators together with our member states, develop the methodologies, collect the data from countries. We build capacity, We already have been doing capacity building workshops for a long time. And as I just said, we will continue doing that. We try to make sense of the data by doing analysis and publications. We reach out through various channels, communication channels, our website, digital presence. And we're not doing this by ourselves. We are working strongly together in the UN system, but also beyond the UN system in advancing the statistical agenda. So basically all aspects of data. Now this slide comes from another presentation on innovation and the digital transformation. But if you look at the right-hand part of the slide, you can see the types of statistics that we're talking about. So we're talking about access, subscriptions to fixed and mobile telephone, devices, barriers. We collect a lot of infrastructural data on the network and network coverage for fixed and mobile. We also collect data on quality of service, on traffic indicators, but also a large bunch of indicators on how ISTs are being used. And then some of the enablers and barriers are affordability and skills that we collect data on as well. And finally, we also have information on the markets in terms of employment revenues, etc. So really a broad spectrum of what we cover. Some of these indicators serve the global measurement agenda. In the SDG indicator framework, there are 7 IST indicators only, by far not enough out of the 232. And 5 of them are under the responsibility of the ITU. They are on skills, on mobile phone ownership, on the use of the internet by individuals, but also on infrastructure in the population covered by a mobile network, and on fixed internet broadband subscriptions by speed. Our data are also being used for the UN Broadband Commission targets on the Connect 2030 agenda, which is more or less more internal. And what I just mentioned on universal and meaningful connectivity. So behind the scenes, how do we work? We work basically on the whole statistical business model. We define the indicators together with our expert groups where our member states are being represented. We have 2 expert groups, the expert group on telecom indicators and the expert group on household indicators. We collect data through annual data collections. We validate the data to check if the data makes sense and to validate, go back to countries where we have questions and doubts. We compile the data, we harmonize at country level, and we make aggregates so that we can produce regional and global aggregates. We analyze the data in a number of publications, and we disseminate the data through our data hub, our digital development dashboard, our facts and figures publications, and the global connectivity report. So from step 1 to the final step. So a little bit more about the data. This is important. In the middle, we have the ITU statistics that we collect, that we disseminate in our data hub. We collect what we call supply side data. So these are the administrative data from telecom operators. And the telecom operators usually report to the national regulators, sometimes to the ministries. And these are data, for example, on subscriptions, on traffic, on quality of service, on bandwidth. Then we have a set of statistics on prices, which we call the IST price basket. This also comes from the regulator or from the ministries, but we also do our own research on operators' website to go country by country and look at the plans that are being proposed and try to take the cheapest plan that are according to our guidelines. So that's all supply side. And then we have demand side. So this is what people do, how households access the internet and how individuals use the internet. And this has to come from surveys, because we not only want to do what people are doing, we also want to know who these people are. So what is their educational background, their gender, their age, etc. So for this, you basically need to ask the people. So you need surveys that are usually done by national statistical offices. We're also interested in what businesses do on the internet, but that's not our responsibility. That's the responsibility of UNCTAD. So they do the IST use by business surveys. This goes a little bit more in depth. I think I will skip this, but what I do want to say is that on the supply side, we have good data because the regulator, they are actually being funded. They're funded by the operators who want to operate in the country, and they often have a legal requirement as well to submit the data to the regulator. So we have good data from regulator, and the supply side data are generally well done. Also the price data that also come from the supply side, we have basically the full data set. The problem is more on the demand side because surveys are expensive. They're not done every year, but in some countries not even done at all because there's basically no budget for them. They're done by the NSOs that are underfunded, unlike the regulators. So where we have gaps in our data, it's more on the demand side than on the supply side. The methodology is very important because, of course, we want to compare between countries. We want everyone to be talking about the same thing when we talk about indicators. So we've laid it all down in two manuals, the handbook for the collection of administrative data on telecommunications and ICTs. So that's the supply side data. And the manual for measuring ICT access and use by household and individuals. So this is the demand side. We're currently having the 2020 edition, and every 5 to 10 years, we do an update to update it for everything that has happened in between at our two expert groups. Both publications are freely available on our website in the 6 languages of the Union. Data are being disseminated on our website in the Data Hub. This is relatively new. We used to have a database that was for sale, but we're now finally moving on as well to open access, and the Data Hub was released, I think now a year ago maybe. It's still under development, but already it has most or all of our data, and also the data from our sister division that deals with policies, tariffs and policies, and thus the IST regulatory tracker, for example. So visit our data hub and have a look and look for the data that are of interest to you. Now, what we're doing is collecting data from countries that collect the data from the operators or through surveys. Of course, there has been a lot of attention in the last few years and more activity in terms of big data. And big data in some cases can replace existing data, but it's also more of a complement to existing indicators. We've been working on that already for a number of years, and in particular on the use of mobile phone big data for measuring the information society. We have a handbook on that as well. Furthermore, we are looking into open sources and building layers upon layers of these open sources, and doing this, trying to come up with our alternative estimates of, for example, internet use estimates, so that we can supplement the household surveys, which I said are not done in all the countries. So this is a way of improving and increasing the coverage of those data. This is work in progress, but it's very promising. Finally, on this part of the agenda, we are working together within a framework of other international organizations. We are one of the founding institutions of the Partnership on Measuring IST for Development, which is a global initiative that comprises at the moment 14 international and regional agencies, all involved in official ICT statistics. So this was quite briefly why we need indicators and what we at the ITU do to collect indicators from all the countries in the world. I have a few slides with some data because it's always good to look at data. So last year, we estimated that 5.3 billion people, or 66% of the world population, was online, but 2.7 billion people were still not using the internet. We can look at that by region or by income level, and maybe of particular interest for the Caribbean is the SIDS. That there's a special aggregate where we have indicators from. You can see that in the SIDS is exactly at the at the global aggregate of 66%. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, you can see that young people, which are the little bars above, the little hyphens above the bars, young people are much more likely to use the internet than older people or than the rest of the population, which doesn't come as a big surprise. We can see that the gap is especially big in Africa. So Africa, that is lagging behind a little bit, is probably catching up a little bit quicker than we were afraid of. In the SIDS, we can see that 81% of the 15 to 24-year-olds are online, which is a high percentage. Another way of looking at the data is looking at the world map, and now you can see in one glance, you can see where the connectivity issues are, which are mainly in Africa, South Asia, and a little bit in Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, you cannot see the Caribbean very well, and I cannot zoom in here, but it looks more greenish and a bit orange, so it's not too bad. With big data, gives you other opportunities. It allows you to actually zoom in into great detail, even within a country or within a city. So on the right-hand side, you can see, for example, Rio de Janeiro, where you can see that the center is much denser in terms of internet penetration than the suburbs. The gender digital divide, important. We use the gender parity score, which is the percentage of males using the internet divided by the percentage of females using the internet. And when it's around 1, there's gender parity. And we can see that in the regions where internet penetration is low, gender parity is low as well, but with a very positive exception of the SIDS that has basically reached complete parity. So that is at least good news for the region. In terms of subscriptions, we can see that mobile, of course, has been dominant, but you cannot really compare mobile with fixed because mobile is often individual while fixed is shared within a household. What you can see, though, is that fixed broadband has overtaken fixed telephone. So there's now a lot of cases where a household has a fixed broadband connection without a fixed telephone subscription. And we can also see that mobile broadband is really approaching mobile cellular. So there's still people that have a mobile cellular subscription without internet, but it's slowly dying out. Mobile phone ownership is mimicking a little bit internet use, except that there's a little bit more higher percentages for mobile phone ownership than internet use. But it's kind of a natural barrier for internet use because the mobile phone is really the most common way to access the internet. So without a mobile phone, it's getting hard to actually use the internet. This is mobile network coverage. So 95% of the world is covered by a 3G network, which is needed to access the internet. 4G is, of course, the more performing technology. There we see that 88% of the world population has access to such a network. 5G, we are still at the beginning of getting the data. We say 19%, but it's probably higher already than that. Bandwidth, I'm going to skip it. Affordability, we have the affordability threshold of 2%, which is a broadband commission target. 1% would even be better, which means that if you can get a mobile broadband data package for less than 2% of your monthly income, then the internet is affordable. And again, you can see where it is not affordable, and not surprisingly, those are also the regions where internet use was very low. So we can see a direct correlation, at least, between affordability and internet use. Skills is very important, but also very complicated in terms of measurement. I would need another 5 to 10 minutes to talk about this slide alone. I will not do that, but it is important, but we're working very hard in getting better measurement of this, but it's really a challenge. So that was quite quickly some of the results. I have, I think, one concluding slide, which is that ICT statistics are really important because even in the few minutes that I spoke about what you can see, this all gives you all kind of entry points into policies. And at the country level, when you combine it with the universal minimum connectivity paradigm, You really need indicators to know where you are, to know where you're going, and also to look at how the digital divide is within countries and between countries. Connectivity is important. This was not recognized enough at the beginning of the SDGs in 2015, but I think by now no one is doubting it anymore. Connectivity is a key enabler of sustainable development. Digital is a driver of growth. There are, and it has been mentioned a few times this morning, of course, risks associated to it, and these need to be tackled as well, also with indicators, but this is very, very, very hard. But we keep on trying, but we need better indicators on security and safety. Big data can help us, and we're working very hard on them, but we do also need to keep on collecting the indicators that we collect at the moment. Our data is freely available in line with the UN data strategy. I really recommend you to go on our website, on our data hub, and look around. So I'm going to leave you with with 2 more slides, sorry. We have 3 courses to learn more about the indicators. So I told you we have the annual on 3 issues. We also have courses on that, which are freely available in the ITU Academy, and they're self-paced online. So you can just go there, sign up, and do them at your own pace whenever you want to, and they are for free. So if you want to learn more, all the tools are there. This is some of our products, some screenshots from our website, some of our latest publications, and a link to the website. So this was maybe a little bit rushed, but still I think I got all my points across that I wanted to get across. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Schaaper, for an extremely insightful conversation. I think one of the big things that stuck out to me was 2.7 billion people in the world are still offline. And we got to see some of the reasons as to why that is still a factor, from costs to education. Make sure you guys go and check out those free courses from the ITU, because, I mean, digital literacy at this point is everything. Now, we're going to be taking a 15-minute break to stretch your legs, go and recharge. You at home, if you're watching from home or at the office, go get yourself a drink, some coffee, a snack. We'll be reconvening in 15 minutes, and that is going to be looking like, say, 11:05, 11 o'clock? 11 o'clock, perfect, 11 o'clock, all right? See you then.
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Well done.
Yeah. No, thank you, Nate. Last minute.
Investigations. And I want to stick a pin here when I discuss investigations, because within our region, a lot of our CSIRTs are supported heavily by our national security criminal investigation frameworks. And so therefore, it is important that our investigators, that is both from the perspective of the detective aspect, but also the investigators that are qualified to assess devices and to scrutinize devices and to extract evidential material, that there is a lot of focus there in building such capacity. We also need to strengthen our national CSIRTs. Now, what is the role of the recipient in the context of capacity building? Having properly identified the needs and priorities, it's important to develop a roadmap of what will be needed to achieve the desired outcomes. For example, within our region, let us take Jamaica, for example. If we identify that we have a difficulty in terms of our investigative frameworks, it may be in terms of our technical capacity as well as our human resources. It may also be a deficiency in terms of the knowledge base, knowledge in respect of the how of investigating particular malicious activities, then it's important for us to develop a framework in which we can build capacity and build it where it matters. There are instances where we may receive technical assistance, but the technical assistance does not necessarily reach to the actual individuals who need it the most. It's also important, having assessed our needs and priorities, having developed our roadmap, to then be able to present these to the particular agency or developed country which may be able to offer assistance to our jurisdiction. Now, I've spoken about the security aspect, and I also want to touch on the cybercrime aspect. But before I do so, when you assess the approach of the security aspect to this, the fight for a safe cyberspace, it's important for us to carefully assess the norms. And these are the norms that have been developed at the UN level, and that is the norms for state behavior in cyberspace. Even if we as small developing states are to aspire to adopt the norms fully within our own domestic context, it's important for us to realize that a lot of these norms will require capacity building. There are 11 norms, and I just wanted to share a bit. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I will just share a bit. One of the norms is interstate cooperation on security. Another norm that I also wanted to identify is cooperation to stop crime and terrorism in cyberspace, protect critical infrastructure, respond to requests for assistance, and ensure supply chain security. Even in respect of fulfilling these norms, it would be important for us to have the capacity both in terms of human resources, but also capacity in terms of our technical resources as well. Now, to look at cyber from the perspective of crime fighting, yes, security is our offensive mechanism, but also we need to have a domestic legislative structure that is capable of fighting cybercrime or computer crimes. Within our region, most of our territories have computer misuse legislation. There are some territories that have cybercrime legislation. But in assessing our legislative structure, once we have a domestic law that addresses or criminalizes malicious activities in cyberspace or criminalizes malicious activities against computer systems and ICT systems, then we are in a better position as a region that if a malicious activity occurs, we can investigate, prosecute, and bring the criminals to justice. Now, in terms of the overarching multilateral structure in terms of cybercrime legislation, so far we have the Budapest Convention, which is a European Union document. There's, in the region, I don't believe there's any member state that has signed, but there are member states that have been invited to sign this regional instrument. But at the United Nations level, the UN is currently seeking to draft a cybercrime convention or a convention that treats with the use of ICTs for criminal purposes. And there is a dedicated chapter within the instrument that treats with capacity building and technical assistance. And briefly, I'll indicate that the current treaty being negotiated treats with the issue of not only building capacity in terms of human resources, but also technical capacity building, building the structures in terms of the investigative arm of your, whether it's your national security or police investigative framework, also building the capacity of prosecutors, judges to be able to handle and manage cyber prosecutions. And so in closing, I'll indicates, in terms of technical assistance from the perspective of the UN process, the focus is on training, mutual exchange of relevant experiences and specialized knowledge, also legislative development, ensuring that there is harmonization of legislation, also capacity building in the collection and sharing of electronic evidence and law enforcement techniques. And so, as I've said, we focus on security, but we also focus on crime fighting when we discuss the issue of cybercrime and cybersecurity. And in terms of the OEWG and the norms that have been established, there is the need and will be the need for capacity building to ensure that we are in a position to satisfy the requirements of the norms. And then from the crime fighting perspective, to ensure that we have sufficient legislation to address cybercriminal activities. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Lovely presentation from Ms. Swaby. Now, we are going to be moving next to, do we have His Excellency Claudio Peguero online?
Here I am.
Wonderful. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll assume that you can. So I'll be building from what Andrea was just mentioning and focus a little bit on specific practical examples and experiences with all of this is capacity building. Basically on the multilateral arena, as Andrea was mentioning, at the UN level, we have two processes going on, one focusing on cybersecurity under the first commission, and the other one focusing on cybercrime on the third commission. And what they both have in common is that they're taking into account the increasing need for capacity building in both areas. One, in the investigation, prosecution, and collection of digital evidence on the cybercrime side, but also on the cybersecurity and cyber diplomacy side, which has been kind of a new aspect that has been growing in importance, and then that it requires a lot of capacity building. This last process, the ad hoc committee, basically is kind of like a spin-off from a group of governmental experts that used to be meeting from 2001. It was decided that there was a need to explore solutions to the cybercrime problem. And in the session one of the sessions that we had in 2013, it was evident that the capacity building was a major need. And from that point, where it was kind of the start of all of these capacity building projects. We have, for example, the Council of Europe with the Budapest Convention that Andrea mentioned as well. And by 2013 is when the Council of Europe realized that the solution was not only having a convention, was not only harmonizing legislation, but that we needed the capacity, especially in the criminal justice system. We needed to have judges, prosecutors, and police officers being able to handle, to investigate, to get and process this evidence. So that's when they created their CPROC, the Capacity Building Office, in which they have several projects going on. One of them is GLACY, which I will talk about in a second. And then also in the OAS, we have been working within REMHA for cybercrime in the group of governmental experts for cybercrime. And CIGF has been working a lot with cybersecurity and also recently also on cyber diplomacy. So all these organizations have had a big role in capacity building. So from that point on, then we've seen a lot of different initiatives and projects be born. In the European Union, we also have projects like Cyber for Deaf, which is, well, if finishing this year, it focuses on cybersecurity. EU CyberNet is focusing on both cybercrime and cybersecurity, and then also in some aspects of cyber diplomacy. We have El Pacto. We have also other projects like the UNODC cybercrime project. And we have other key players like Interpol, Europol, CARICOM Impacts. We have also individual countries that are offering capacity building to partners. So there's, I think, the issue of sustainability in all of this, and I'm gonna move forward with this because what we've learned from experience is that it needs to be, even though there's a need to be an ever ongoing process, it needs to be sustainable. And I think that's one of the key elements. And it also needs to be tailored because maybe every country does not have the same needs. Maybe there are some basic shared needs, but then there are also specific needs. And then capacity building needs to be tailored for that. Also, there's this challenge of duplication of efforts. Having all of these projects creates the risk of having all of them or many of them working with a specific country or specific region, all in the same things, and maybe even training the same people or training different people in the same things. So one of these challenges is being able to create synergies between these projects. One of these project that is aimed at that, and I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this because Valentina's gonna talk about it in more detail, is the GFCE, the Global Forum on Cyber Expertise, which is focused basically on coordinating all of these projects and initiatives precisely to avoid duplications. I'm not gonna go any further into that so Valentina doesn't kill me. So another project that was born from GLACY, which we'll talk about next, was this LAC4, which is the Latin American and Caribbean Cyber Competence Center. So the original idea was to have a physical place. In this case, it's within this building, this government building in the colonial zone of Santo Domingo, a very beautiful area. And the idea was, on the one hand, to provide a venue for all the other projects. So right now, GFC, GLACY, and all of the other projects are able to host their trainings in those facilities. So it sometimes, depending on the size of the activity and on whether there are other activities at the same time, it at least takes the need to hire like hotels or other conference rooms and so on. And they also provide some extra assistance in that. So even though it is physically located in Santo Domingo, it is also thought as a multi-country project. And right now, there are other sub-regional hubs that even though they don't have a physical building for that, they are able to coordinate trainings within countries within the region. So the last mission that we had with LAC4 was in Chile, in the diplomacy school of Chile. And it was basically aimed at teaching the students of the diplomatic school cyber diplomacy. And then we've seen other trainings in other regions, so that basically all of the countries in the region can be and especially feel part of the project. This project is going to be led by EU CyberNet until 2025. And from that point on, the idea is that the presidency of the center rotates in all member states that become part of the center. So again, that this is not a Dominican Republic project, but it's only a project that is physically present in the Dominican Republic, but it serves the entire region. And again, like GFCE, the way it's thought of is that it coordinates all of the, or it serves all of the other projects so that we can avoid this overlapping. There are other initiatives like within the United Nations, the UN Women in International Security and Cyberspace Fellowship, which has supported 35 fellows to the date and until 2025 to participate in these UN processes in the OEWG and the ad hoc committee. And then there's this, going back to the Council of Europe, when they realized the need for capacity building, then this number 3 corner of the triangle was created. And there are, like I mentioned, several projects, but for our region, the main project that they have is GLACY Plus. Basically, they have GLACY Plus and Octopus project, which in fact, Octopus is focusing in more Caribbean countries than GLACY so far. Difference is that Octopus can work with countries that are not members of the Budapest Convention, that have not requested accession. In the moment that a country requests to be invited to accede the Budapest Convention, then they can be also covered by the GLACY Plus project. So this project is ending in February of next year. It started in 2016, and it was like a re-edition of the GLACY original project, which had only 7 countries, and it has been expanded twice now in terms of time and budget. So far, the budget is almost 19 million euro, and I think we've had a very good practical experience drawing from this project. Let me see if I can put on this video briefly. And, okay. So basically, that video explains the rationale of the GLACY Plus project, and I think it's always an image is better than 1,000 words. So what's interesting about this project is, like I said, the sustainability. So far, Dominican Republic has been able to train over 700 criminal justice professionals, judges, prosecutors, and police officers in over 20 national activities and over 40 international activities. And the two things that I think make it sustainable is that on the one hand, we have now built into the curricula of our National Judicial School and the National Prosecutor School this basic training on cybercrime and digital evidence. And right now we're building into the curricula of the National Police Academy also the first responder training for every single police officer. And another thing is, and in these pictures that I'm showing here, this person on the bottom left and the top right is one of our prosecutors who is now part of the trainers that are working in other countries with the GLACY Plus project. So we are not only able to replicate within the country this knowledge that we've obtained from it, but also we can support the project by supporting other countries in the training. And I think that has a great value. So finally, we have the new version of the GLACY project, which is now going to be called Global Action on Cybercrime Enhanced, or GLACY-E. And basically, the difference is that it's going to change the role of the hub countries. I forgot to mention that since 2016, Dominican Republic is the regional hub and a priority country for the project. Now they're adding a second hub country, which is going to be Chile in our region. And the idea is to basically empower a bit more these regional hubs to provide training to the rest of the region. So it's going to be now more focused on that role so that we are able to handle more activities, because right now it all needs to be coordinated from the CPROC office in Bucharest. And because of the time difference and the resource limit that they have in terms of staff, it gets complicated. So being within the region, it should make this easier. This project is going to be launched in December of this year in the Octopus conference that is going to be in Bucharest, Romania. I invite you to find out about it. There's support for countries in our region to attend that through the Octopus project. So get in contact with the Council of Europe, or you can do it through me if you want to, so I can guide you if you're interested in participating both in the conference and in the project. So basically, that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Claudio Peguero. Next up, we have Ms. Valentina Name. So can we get a warm round of applause for Ms. Valentina?
Thank you very much for having me today. Even though I work for the OAS and the CIGF program, I'll be speaking on behalf of the GFCE, as we are the liaison of the regional hub for Latin America and the Caribbean. So I'm gonna present a little bit of what the GFCE have done in the region and or focus in terms of capacity building. So first of all, the GFCE is an apolitical and neutral organization that aims to bring capacity building topics closer to the region. It is also the umbrella organization that brings together different actors, such as civil society, public and private sector, and academia to work in favor of creating a better cybersecurity capacity building. Additionally, our main objectives is to bring more attention to the need for effective cybersecurity capacity building and involvement of all stakeholders in related processes. In this sense, we also participate in international cybersecurity and cybercrime processes, such as the OEWG and the ad hoc committee, by providing opportunities to diplomats to participate in these international processes. So how do we accomplish these objectives? First, we have how do we accomplish this objective? First, by maximizing the advantages of information and communication technologies, ICTs, within a free, open, peaceful, and secure global digital environment. We also work on strengthening cyber capacity and expertise globally by being a pragmatic, action-oriented, and flexible platform for international collaboration. And how we do it? We first avoid duplication of efforts through our coordination of projects. We improve efficiency and effectiveness by sharing knowledge and expertise within our community. We work towards closing the capacity gaps by helping match requests to offer of supports through our clearinghouse mechanism. And we support filling the knowledge gap by helping the development of research projects and through the CCB agenda. So the before mentioned objectives are accomplished through the GFCE ecosystem, which consists on different tools that we use for this objective. So first, we have the Civil Portal, which is the repository for international cyber capacity building projects, and hosts a large library of resources for projects to use. And this repository will also present its different resources by country and region search. And I will show you a little bit more details on how this Civil Portal is structured and how you can benefit from it. We also have the clearinghouse mechanism, which is a mechanism that aims to facilitate matchmaking between GFCE members who have cyber capacity needs with GFCE partners and implementers that can offer a cyber capacity support. The clearinghouse effectively matches actors such as countries, private sector, and civil society that have resources and expertise and can provide key capacity building services with countries which are our recipients that require help in strengthening their cyber resilience. And then we have our working groups, which are the GFCE driving force to coordinate and improve global cyber capacity building efforts. These working groups are separated by themes, and they work on these themes based on the working group that you're part of or you want to collaborate in. So for example, we have a working group A, which is about which we discuss cybersecurity policy and strategies. We have working group B, cyber incident management in critical infrastructure protection. Working group C, cybercrime. Working group D, cybersecurity culture and skills. And lastly, working group E, cybersecurity internet standards. So as I mentioned before, to show you a little bit about the Civil Portal, this is our portal. Any member or partner of the GFCE community can add or update the projects they are working on based on their country or region. And right now, for example, specifically for the Latin American, the Caribbean, we currently have 129 projects. We have 77 active actors, and we are promoting 3 upcoming events. So here, if you have any topic that you wanna do some research on it, or you just need some information for a project that you have, as I said before, in your country, you can go here, search the topic, and there might be other partners or members working on this topic. So with this, our goal is to avoid the duplication of efforts and provide support for the region. Following to this, as our strategic priorities since 2022 and towards 2024, we have been working on 3 different topics. First, increasing global cooperation by expanding the GFCE network. We are focusing specifically on inclusivity. We are focusing as well on regional coordination, such as our annual regional donors and implementers meeting that we have been doing. We started doing it virtual, and since last year, we started having the in-person meetings. And the creation as well of the Hub's website that serve as an additional resource for communities and others with the intention of bridging the national and global levels. And lastly, we have been promoting local collaboration between the GFCE different partners through the GFCE ecosystem that functions as a hub of resources, expertise, and collaborative initiative in the realm of cybersecurity. These priorities, of course, they have not been, they could not have been successfully achieved without the support of the different hubs. Right now, I'm speaking on behalf of the Latin American Caribbean hub, but we also have the Pacific hub, the Southeast Asia hub, and the Africa hub. And we have like a direct communication with the Secretariat in terms of the different ongoing topics and situations and projects that we want to support within our region. And now moving forward to my last topic, the GFC has been also mobilizing resources for cyber capacity building through the organization of the Global Conference on Cyber Capacity Building. This conference will happen at the end of November under the theme Cyber Resilience for Development. And they have been mobilizing resources given that cyber capacity building has suffered from insufficient awareness among decision makers, which in turn has resulted in limited available financing, along with fragmented coordination efforts that have impaired the effectiveness and sustainability of relevant initiatives. At the same time, the cyber capacity building community has developed organically within the limits of a specific thematic and policy perspective, for example, on cybercrime, cybersecurity, and cyber diplomacy. Part of this community has been slow to embrace the lessons from international development cooperation, inter alia, due to a lack of coordinated strategic effort to bring those different communities closer and combine the respective community expertise and financing. As a result, the Global Conference on CCB will elevate and mainstream cyber resilience and capacity building, as I mentioned before, in the international development agenda and in national development plans and investments as key enablers of sustainable development, inclusive economic growth and social prosperity for all. So as its main outcome, I mentioned a little bit before, but our main outcomes and objective will be a high-level demand-driven global cyber capacity building agenda for cyber resilient international development. Also, we seek to improve our architecture of coordination and cooperation mechanisms for cyber capacity building. And lastly, expansion of the pool of resources available for sustainable, equitable, demand-driven cyber capacity building. That will be all for now, and thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Valentina Name. We had an extremely insightful conversation about cybersecurity with three esteemed guests. And honestly, I think this entire conversation with the panel really focused on collaboration, or the need for collaboration, the need for coordination, but also starting to really build capacity for cybersecurity experts across the entire region. I was having a conversation with a gentleman by the name of Eldred Garcia from First Atlantic Commerce. He's a cybersecurity specialist. And one thing he said to me was that cybersecurity, you're really only as strong as your neighbors. One weak link in the entire chain of defense can pretty much bring down the entire system. So in the case of like Target, we know Target was hacked not so long ago. The perpetrators didn't get in through Target Security. Target Security was pretty much airtight. They got in through the HVAC company. So your cybersecurity is only as good as the people that you are connected to. So this really shows the need for regional collaboration and international collaboration. All right. Moving forward, we are going to be unveiling the Caribbean and Latin American research initiatives and products in internet governance with a spotlight on LACNIC's Lideres 2.0, presented by Ms. Paula Otigi from LACNIC. Ms. Paula, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much for the introduction, and hi,
Wonderful.
everyone.
And we hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So I will to share the screen. Okay, here you can see it. So exactly, I want to share with you Caribbean and Latin American research initiatives in internet governance by Lideres program. So please let me tell you about Lideres program. So it's a program that brings funding, sorry, just a second. Yes, bring funding and mentorship to successful applicants to research and present more detailed knowledge on one selected internet governance issues. The program supports small projects that must be unique and present diverse perspectives, especially with a local view of the issue selected. And we found a great value on this aspect about local views.
Ms. Otigi, do me one favor. Can you go full screen for us?
Yeah, of course, sorry.
Wonderful, no problem.
Yeah, here
Perfect,
is
all right, there we go.
Okay, perfect, go ahead. So the research period lasts 3 months. So the candidates selected will have 3 months to carry out the research projects together with the support of an assigned mentor, a recognized mentor for the region. And at the end, the successful applicants will present concise outputs, which can be presented in a variety of ways, such as a short digital publication, podcast, infographics, videos. So it's open to creativity. So each edition has large variety of thematic areas, and for this year, 2023, the thematic areas are Internet for All, Inclusion and Impact on Human Rights, Cybersecurity and Cybercrime, Risk of Internet Fragmentation, Models of Internet Public Policy Formulation, and Artificial Intelligence and Emerging Technology. So each of these thematic areas has sub-themes that can be served as a guide for the approach of the research. So the candidate will choose one and go ahead with the research projects. So some general highlights about the program. Over the last 4 years, we have received more than 1,030 applications from more than 40 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean region. And by the end of 2023, we will have support 60 research, and multi-stakeholder initiatives are highly valued, as well as diversity. So everyone can apply. Diversity of profiles like university students or policymakers, freelance researchers. So everyone is welcome to apply. But now, going to Caribbean contributions, I can share with you that over the last 4 years, we received more than 30 applications from 4 notable countries like Haiti, Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, and Dominica. And by the end of this year, we will be supported 10 research projects from Caribbean candidates. And throughout the program, in the 4 years, we had 2 Caribbean mentors that I want to have a special mention. They are Nigel Casimir from the beginning up to 2021, and then Claire Craig up for today. And about profiles from Caribbean researchers and topics, we have a huge diversity, and some of the topics were digital inclusion, cybersecurity, access, gender, productivity, artificial intelligence, technological development, among others. So now to share with you Caribbean contributions and the application of the different themes that I mentioned before. Those different Caribbean research projects contribute in a valuable way addressing internet governance issues which should be present in internet governance process. For example, themes like marginalized communities. And those projects getting fundings that are transformed many times into recommendation proposals to decision makers in each communities, and also improving mechanisms of action and, of course, positions the different countries and issues among the region. So now I'm going to share with you 3 research projects from Caribbean candidates. It's just a way to show you a part of the value results that we have had along the period of the program. One is from Kindy Vereus from IT. The research, it was digital literacy for inclusion and active participation of young people. I'm going to tell you briefly that it was a research from Kindy and her team that conducted a comprehensive survey across 15 schools in IT. So, sorry. Okay. The survey identified gaps in integrating new information technologies in learning, information sharing, and empowerment, and the effort resulted on over 10,000 trained educators and students. So here it is the link for you to know more about it. The second one is from Naomi Padmore and her team. The investigation was called Investigating the Caribbean ICT Landscape. It was a project that aimed to contribute to planning accessible telecommunications and internet service in the Caribbean. It was so interesting because it was focused on Guyana, San Vicente, Grenadines, and Trinidad and Tobago, and used different research methods like interviews, desk research, and surveys, identify data needs for ICT policymakers. Then Maitri Naring, sorry if I'm not pronouncing well the names, from Guyana, the research was called The State of Digital Literacy Among Elderly Guyanese. And the study aims to assess digital literacy among elderly citizens. It was a mix of qualitative and quantitative methods and includes rural but also urban areas, and the analysis of collected data led to conclusions and recommendations. So you can see the variety of research from the Caribbean, and I invite you all, of course, to visit our webpage and know more about these research projects, but also the rest from the Caribbean and from the rest of the region. So now to finish, I want to share with you that the edition for this year, 2023, it was closed. The calls for proposal closes on July. And after a selected process carried out by the selection committee, that are our mentors, we have finally 12 candidates that will be carrying out their work now from September to November. So please stay tuned from the different LACNIC channels and to follow the results, and of course to invite you again to visit the website and know more about the whole results that we have along those years. So thank you so much. If you have any question.
All right. Thank you, Miss Paula Otigi. Can we just get a warm round of applause for her?
Thank you.
All right, so the chat has been going. You know, you guys have having some great conversations on the chat. We encourage more conversations during the chat. I would also like to invite you guys to, if you have any questions, put them in the chat so we can bring them up on screen and get those burning questions answered. I think I'll kick things off by asking, if you are somebody who is interested in learning more about cybersecurity, maybe you want to, you know, learn in school, or you want to do a career change, where is a good place to start? I like to recommend some free resources. Where is a good place to start if you are learning, if you want to become a cybersecurity specialist? And that's open to the panel. Do we have Valentina? Are you still here?
I am, yes.
Would you want to take that one?
Sure, yeah. As I mentioned before, the GFCE has a civil portal, which has a lot of resources and ongoing projects. So if you're interested in one specific topic, you can go there and search, and it might be there. Otherwise, you can reach out to us. And now, if I have to change my hat to the OAS, we've been providing a lot of training depending on the topics as well, like for policymakers, diplomats, young professionals. We've been providing a lot of trainings in regard, like in terms of cybersecurity. So you can go to our social media and just see what we have been doing. You can also sign up for our distribution list, and we can support you and update you on what we've been doing in the past few months and years. So it's just to go to our website, GFC website, OES website, and you'll find a lot of resources. And we are always open to answer any questions or doubts and provide you with the most updated information.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Now we have a question inside of the room, Mr. Nigel Casimir.
Yes, thank you very much, Nigel Casimir from CTU. And I guess I could put this question to either the ambassador or Ms. Andrea Martin-Swaby. They talked about different processes going on at the UN, one on cybercrime and one on cybersecurity. And I wonder if they could indicate if there's a time frame to these processes. You know, if it has been determined, you know, a schedule for the production of various outputs. Some clarity on that would be appreciated. Thank you.
You wish perhaps I could address the process of the ad hoc committee, a process in which I'm quite involved in that process. So the process started in terms of the active negotiations in January, February of last year. There are 7 scheduled meetings. We're actually currently engaged in the 6th meeting, so I'm joining from the UN in New York at the moment. The 7th meeting is scheduled for the end of January next year, by which it is hoped that we will have a draft convention and would have completed the process. And so during this actual 6th meeting, the CARICOM, we have been negotiating as a bloc. All 14 member states are negotiating as one. Jamaica is the lead coordinator for CARICOM. And so far, we have been aggressively trying our best to ensure that we have an instrument that all 198 states of the United Nations can be pleased that we've made progress in harmonizing our legislation, and also with a focus on capacity building and technical assistance. In terms of the OEWG process, I don't know if Claudia would want to address on that aspect of it.
Is he there?
If not, I will.
He might have dropped off.
Okay. If not, I'll have a go at it. I'm not as intimately involved in the OEWG process, but what I am aware of is that it focuses on cybersecurity. And so I know that CARICOM member states are also represented in that process. And the focusing is on seeking to ensure that the norms, the 11 norms, are universally acceptable. We know that in the internet space, there's no internet governance. No one can lay hold to the authority on the internet. And so the push is for encouraging member states to adopt the norms within their domestic context to promote a harmonious internet space. I don't know if Valentina or Paula would want to chime in a little bit more, since I'm not so intimately involved in the OEWG process.
Good. Do we have any more questions online or in the room? I had seen a question pop up in the chat. Are we able to grab it and put it in the Q&A? If we could scroll down on the screen. Faith, you seen it? We have one question that popped up in the Q&A. Are you seeing it? Okay. Perfect. There we go. From Erica. Faith, you wanna grab that for us?
Okay, I'll read it out. It's not a question, but information. The International Information System Security Certification Consortium, ISC2, pronounced ISC squared, currently offers free exam and training in cybersecurity with its certified in cybersecurity program. So do you want me to reread it?
No, yeah, you can read it again because I think you're a bit cut off in the beginning. Yeah. Consortium, ISC squared, currently offers free exam and training in cybersecurity with its certified in cybersecurity program. So the person posted a link to it. So
Right, so I just wanted to add something to that. The particular certification that they're offering is called, it's the basic one, Cybersecurity Professional, but it really is the ISC squared response to a global shortage of 3.4 million cybersecurity professionals needed. That is an offer that's on right now. It's not going to be like that all the time, and then other levels of their certifications are. You have to pay for them. But anyone who's interested in getting involved, you do not have to have a technical background. It will be strongly encouraged that you look at the ISC's free offer this year of basic cybersecurity training.
That's very insightful indeed. Mr. Casimir?
Yes, I also see a comment from Tracy Hackshaw on the chat related to this. He says there's also an ICSC squared Caribbean chapter. And in the chat, he put a link to a website related to it. There is another comment as well that this is from Javed. I'm not seeing Javed's last name, but he's online there. And he said that the cybersecurity bootcamp through the OAS is very beneficial, and it is one of the pathways to getting invaluable experience. The OAS stands to be one of the most resourceful institutions for capacity building in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Those are two great resources to go and check out. Now, before Miss Andrea and Valentina, before you guys go, one last question before we break for lunch. We have been seeing a lot of cybersecurity attacks across the region, right? What are some tangible but practical things that business owners can do to protect their enterprises that are probably not being done right now? Valentina, do you want to kick us off and then we could bring in Andrea?
Sure. I will
Or
say,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. I will. That's a question more to my technical team, but I will say always to do the basics. I think in terms of do capacity building for all their employees, because it's not like a problem of like the high level people, but it's a security matter that we should all have, like from the basics, having like a secure password, like certain techniques to have a safe password, to getting to know the different cyber threats that we can experience at work, doing just from writing an email to clicking to a link. So I think it's sometimes we think that it's very technical skills that we should have, but they otherwise they are very basic. And I will say making all the employees capable of understanding what a cyber threat is and knowing how to identify them.
Wonderful. Andrea.
Yes, I am not a cybersecurity professional. In fact, I'm from the crime aspect. But if I could shed a little light, also based on what Valentina had just said, now, with the introduction of data protection and data privacy laws within our region, it will be the first time that there's an obligation to employ cybersecurity measures within an organization once you're processing personal data. And so there are certain standards that include security measures, education as well, building capacity in that regard. So to answer with a non-technical but legal answer, and also practical answer as well as what Valentina said, it's important that there is awareness. That's a big part of the national cybersecurity strategies as well, to enhance public awareness, to ensure that all persons are equipped with the knowledge to prevent malicious activities from affecting their particular organization.
Wonderful. And Paula, did you have anything to add to that?
No, especially it's not the opportunity why I'm here with you, but I can say that the Lideres programs has a team, a thematic area about cybersecurity. So it's an invitation for who are interested on to present knowledge and invite everyone to know and to know results that we have regarding the program. So,
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, warm round of applause for Ms. Valentina Name, Ms. Andrea Martin-Swaby, and Paula Otigi. All right.